Hello everyone and welcome to episode 9 of the CGVinny Coffee Breaks. Today we are going to talk about a really technical subject, which is the FX maps within Substance 3D Designer. So FX map is a super interesting concept because this is a node which has an history. This is almost the heart of Substance 3D Designer and also the Substance ecosystem. If we compare to Marvel, it would be a gem of power, for example, for sure. Except that it's a node of power. I would put this one and Pixel Processor within the two most powerful nodes you can find in Substance 3D Designer. Yet, it's also a really different node, which is a bit scary for many people because they start to play with Substance 3D Designer, get some cool stuff, and then they try to do something with the FX map, and it doesn't not work the same way at all. So today we are going to see how it works, what it's made for, etc., etc. As always, I have the chat in front of me, so don't hesitate to say hi if you have any question. We're not a lot at the moment, but I think it will grow a bit by the time. So feel free to ask, to say hi as well. If you, I'd love to know where you are watching this live stream from, for example. I'm going first to explain a bit the story about this. So the concept of the FX map is a bit the genesis of allegorithmic, which is now Adobe Substance 3D. Because when Sébastien de Guide studied, make his thesis and got the idea, he was looking to find a way to make clouds and noise in a procedural way. Well, first in a digital way, which leads him to imagine some procedural techniques. And now, so it was map zone. There was many ideas behind that. And at the end, in Substance 3D Designer, it was really summarizing in this FX map nodes, which allows you to, well, create nodes, but not only, also tools, which are extremely powerful. And once again, based on the fractal concept. So I'm going to show you, and we are going to explain at the same time. So here I am, Substance 3D Designer. I'm going to create a new graph. Let's make it empty. I don't need a full one for this one because we are going only to use the FX map node. So this is from a previous work I just made. So you won't have this, but this is normal. First thing I'm going to do, we are going to visualize a bit as we are going to make an FX map. I'm going to display the result in 3D as well, using base material like this one. In this base material, I'm going to expose the height inputs. And now I'm going to use an FX map like this one. So the FX map this I'm going to put that here. Right click and drag and drop. So this FX map, at first it looks a bit like a regular node. Let's make some space. I'm going to reorganize a bit my screens, putting this, well, not here. Let me check that after. So that here as well. Properties, let's put it here. I like to get my graph on the right and the rest on the left. Rounded cube, FX map, okay, this one. Here we go. And the cube, okay, so yeah. I'm going to move a bit my face so I'm not hiding anything. So FX map, as we say, this is like a regular node at first sight. You have some parameter. You can choose first if it's a color or grayscale. Before to go further, there is 3 levels in FX map in the parameters. First, there is the specific parameter that you can see here. Then you have a way to edit the FX map by entering within it. So you click edit and you enter, and you will have some weird stuff that we are going to explain. And for each of these, there is new nodes with new parameters. And of course, for each parameters, you can create functions. So we are going to look at all these levels. And as you see, when you go into an FX map, in the breadcrumb, you have the hierarchy. So let's go back to here and look at that. So first you can choose if it's color or grayscale. We are going to work in grayscale for this example, but let's put a few seconds in color. First thing you can do is, well, change the whole color of the background of the FX map. By doing this, you can do like this, changing RGB. Here you don't see anything because you have to activate the alpha. So you can do it this way, or you also have a background input. So here with the background input, I can take whatever, let me call a material Wood American Cherry, for example, and if I take the base color, I can put this as background or whatever color image. Note that if I change the background to something like grayscale, like this one, for oh, there is an issue with this one, I have to check. Like this one. So if I deselect and plug, it will directly change the FX map node to the input, the background input. That's a thing to know. So if you say, oh, I was working in a grayscale and suddenly it went to color, it's because you plugged a color background. Then let's continue a bit. So you can play, as I say, with the different parameters like this one. Let's go back to grayscale, as that's where we're going to work. You can you have a way to play with the region to adapt a bit how it tiles or how it repeats. So I'm going to enter for a few seconds within here and just display a shape like the pyramid. So now you have it here. And go back just to see how this parameter works. So the render region is like distorting the region depending on left, right, top, bottom. I don't use it a lot, but in few cases, this is something that you may want to do. Don't forget that by default, it tiles, but if you do this, you will break the tiling. So that's a point to take in account before to touch this. Generally, as I say, I don't use it a lot. It's like the tiling region, it will do the same. It will break the tiling, but what it says, it put an offset on the tiling, even at the point to repeat on the same tile region. You have this left, once again. Oops, sorry. Left, right. You can play with all this. So this, let's go back, left, right, top, bottom, you get it. Curl outside. So what is it? Curling outside is a parameter which says if this pattern here, because this is a pattern, is if the pattern position is outside of this region, watching the center, it won't be displayed at all. So to give you an example, once again, I go 2 seconds within it, and you see I have a few parameters, including the position. So here, if I move, you see that I can move, there is no problem. It will still tile. You see that here it's our texture, but if I do that, no problem, we still see it. Yet, if I go here and go to the curl outside and I click on it, now if I go back and do the same thing, I'm going to remove the tiling here. And if I change the offset, you will see that when it goes, the center here goes outside of the 0, 1 zone, it disappears. So that's what it does. There is no good or bad way, position for this one. It really depends on what you are constructing. Let's continue. Inherit random is no, I'm not the right one here, sorry. Roughness, this is, so roughness and global opacity are, well, opacity is easy. It defines the opacity this way, but you can go above. So if I go, I can go 2, 3, 4, and it will start to burn the color a bit. So something to take in account. But there is some cases where you will have results which are going to really dark. So the fact of increasing the opacity is a way also to adjust the levels. So I don't like the name opacity. Honestly, I would call it exposure or something like that, because it's really, it corresponds more to what it is. So let's put it to 1 at the moment. So that's the main parameters we have seen. The roughness, as I say, I'm going to explain it a bit later on, because right now you see that it does not anything. Why? Because you need to have more patterns. So talking about patterns, how would I summarize what fxmap does compared to another node? The idea here is an fxmap is you can summarize in one sentence by saying, okay, for each pattern you are going to draw, do this logic. Basically, the fxmap is going to draw patterns. What you will do in the first step is to define how a pattern look, and then how it behaves. So that's what we are going to do now. To enter into to edit an fxmap, you have 2 ways. So you have this small button, which is a bit hidden, honestly, which is here, or you can do Ctrl-E while selected, and you will enter in an fxmap graph. So this graph, maybe you have gone into it, and it was a bit scary. And well, you're right, because it doesn't behave the same way. And while, for example, the other graph goes from left to right, even this one seems to go from up to from down to bottom to top, or top to bottom. We don't know exactly. That's a bit weird. Furthermore, if you press spacebar, well, good or bad news is the bad news is that it's all new nodes. The good news is that there is only 3, so this part is easy. So I'm going to display them. Oops, sorry, I don't want them to be linked at the moment. So you have like the quadrant, the iterate, and the switch. Do I make the dad joke? So the switch, the thing related to Nintendo. It was a good joke. Yeah, so that was my dad joke moment. So the switch is, we are not going to spend a lot of time because this is an obvious one. This is a switch. If you click on it, you have left and right input, and you see that you have a selector, left or right. So with this, what you can do is to expose, create a function and expose this parameter. So you give the user the choice and what, sorry, I'm going to drink a bit of water. Better. And yes, you can decide if a user, if you want to have to add some options, for example, defining the depth or whatever, which would mean that you want to either send a part of your graph or the other, you would use a switch. That's, I won't spend a lot of time because that's the same that you would find in a regular graph. So switch is just to put an option and to deviate the graph. Then you have an iterate node that we will see a bit later. The iterate node, what it does, it repeats the content which is linked to it, plugged into it. It's not a simple iterate. We are going to see that at the end of the live stream. On the right, you are going to plant the content you want to iterate, and here you can put a specific background if necessary, something that you would like in background. And now we are going to delete it for now, and we are going to focus on the quadrant. So the quadrant, is the place where you are going to make most of the work. This is where you are going to define the shape of your pattern, because once again, an fxmap is a pattern drawer where you define how it looks and how it behaves. That's really important. If you look at it, you can say, oh, maybe I know these parameters. Most of them, I saw them, for example, in the tile sampler. That's right. What you have to know, as I say, this is a really powerful node, and actually most of the content that you find in Substance 3D Designer is based on an fxmap. For example, if you look at most of the noise, let's look, for example, at cloud noise. Oops, sorry. Cloud noise, cloud 2, for example. If you look at it, you can do Ctrl-E to open the reference. It asks me if I want. You open, and what is it? fxmap, fxmap, fxmap. So all the noise, once again, well, not all, but most of the noises that you would find in Designer are based in Substance, in the fxmap. So for noise, FXmap is great, and we are going to spend the first part of this live stream building a noisemaker, a small noisemaker that you would adjust later on. I will give you the logic about how it works, and then you will be able to play a bit more and adjust to your needs. Another thing where it's really good, because we say, okay, you can say for each pattern, make some random stuff to give a noise. But also you can say for each pattern, make something organized. And let's organize the patterns in a way that are interesting. And for this, for example, a good example is the tie sampler. The tie sampler is a really, it's an FX map, if you go inside, that has been really organized, and where properties has been organized in a great way. So FX map, you see, this is a big FX map with all the possible input, etc. But the core of a tile sampler is an FX map. So the second part of the live stream, we are going not to make an FX map, not to make a tile sampler, sorry, but just to organize few patterns in a logical way, like just aligning them on few lines. That will be the second part. Hope it's clear. Once again, if you have questions, no problem. I have the chat in front of me. Okay, we have seen two examples, so you see the difference. We have like both are based on FX map, so it shows you the versatility of the node. So let's go back to our FX map here, and let's enter into it. So what does a quadrant do? What it does, it's actually draw one pattern at first. A quadrant is one pattern. You have few options, so you have color luminosity. I don't know if it can go. It cannot go. This one, for example, is between 0 and 1. You have to know that most of the parameters within Substance are between 0 and 1. Why? Because it corresponds to black and white. We try to make a correspondency between both, but not only. Sometimes we make it because it's easier to use this way. So you have the color luminosity, you have branch offset. Oh, you see, I still have the curl outside, which is activated. So I'm going to go back a few seconds here and make sure that it's deactivated, because I want to have repetitions. So we have the branch offset, nice. We have a pattern offset, which seems to make the same stuff, but it doesn't. I'm going to show you the difference. It's more obvious when we have different depth of patterns. And by depth, I'm going to explain a bit later on. You can also choose the pattern of it. So you can say no pattern, it's black. You can say input image, which means that if I put whatever image, like checker, for example, and I put it here, not as background, watch out, as input image 0. And you see when I create one, it creates a second one, and you can have almost the number you need for your work. This is dynamic. And now you see that the background is my input, my pattern is my input image. I can put whatever noise, grunge. I have some issue with some nodes. Maybe I will have to reinstall some stuff. Grunge 30. Okay, like that. Okay, so this is not the background. This is because I define my pattern as the image input 1. But for now, we are going to work with a shape from here. So we have the square, of course, and all this one, you can find them, for example, in the shape node, once again, based on the FX map, or also in the tile sampler, tile generator, etc., etc. That's all the shapes which are here. So let's take a small Gaussian like this, or maybe something bigger. Okay, let's take this one, for example. So you say, okay, that's fine. I can offset it. I can change the size horizontally or vertically. I can even change the rotation, which is nice, but it's quite limited because, okay, I can deform a pyramid or paraboloid like that, but I won't go far with this. I can change the blending mode. We'll see that when we have more than one asset. And I can change the random seed. Once again, this will be variable when we start adding some randomness in our FX map. Unitary random is something we'll see later on as well. Just to showcase also the iterate node, if I take this right now and put it here, I have to define this as root, and we are going to explain why it's called root and not output. So now I can, so right now I have one iteration. I can put 1, 10, 100. Right now, once again, not super interesting, because once again, we say for any pattern, define the shape and then define behavior. But as right now, we have the same behavior for any iteration of this pattern, well, they just put on top of the other. So we have to find ways to make some different rules from each drawn pattern. So let's look at this, and we have this as root, as I explained. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new quadrant. And from this one, so if I want to visualize a new quadrant, you don't double click on it. It does not work, because you just see the output of the FX map. So I really have to set as root to see. So once again, I don't have anything here. I'm going to put like something pyramid. So I have a pyramid. Here I have this red b-ball or something like that, whatever it is. And let's see, and we see that we have input. So what does it do? Well, if you look at the icon here, at the representation, you may have a first guess of what it does. And also it's called quadrant. Well, because each quadrant is divided in 4 parts like that, and each part represents one of the input, and it will blend with the rest. So here, I invite you to look at what I'm going to do. If I plug it here, you see that now in top right, I have the pyramid shape that we have in this quadrant. Top right, top left, sorry, then top right, then bottom left, then bottom right. So that's a way that's how it works. It means that when you plug them in, they are going to blend together. But when I say blend, I really mean it, because if you look properly, just take a look at the brightness of this shape, especially if you look at the center. When I plug something here, you see that the brightness of the previous one is diminishing, and also it's the case for this one. If you look at the root, official root, it's a bit brighter, which means that when you plug them together and they are set as root like that, and they blend together, they really adapt the brightness, so the blending is more natural, we can say like that. It tries to find a balance between both. We are going to call that, we can call that quadrant nodes, but I like to speak about depth. The more we add into it, the more depth we do add, and also the more granularity, because as you see here, it's half, the pyramid is half the size. So each time you will plug, it will be half the size, half the size, half the size, etc., etc. So, but this height blending, this luminosity blending is really important. And that brings me to something that a parameter that we have seen a bit before without touching it. It's the roughness. So the roughness, once again, I don't like the name for this one, because I would call it the depth blending. I think it's a better name. It's how each level of your FX maps, when I say level, depth, etc. on your FX map, I'm talking about the same, are blending. So if you want to put on the left, if you get close to 0, you will give priority to the first depth, and when you go to the right, you will go to the second one, and you can go up to way above, and you see that if you go really far, it will blend. The other one is still here. There is still the presence of the previous one, but you can play and adjust. And right now it seems interesting, but you will see that in the future it will be even more interesting. And also for the global opacity that we have here, note that when you play with the roughness and when you will start to have more depth, within your graph with more quadrant nodes, you can also click on the auto level and it will adjust the opacity. So it really use all the grayscale level from black to white. So that's a thing you could do after at the end to adjust your noise, for example. Don't have any question at the moment, so everything is crystal clear, perfect. So getting back into my quadrant, a thing which is interesting right now, so I did a new node. I can also do Control D. So if I take this shape, for example, I can, or the second one, I do Control D and it will duplicate it. And by the way, so if I put that here, I can set as root, like that, and we'll see just this one. If I look at this one, we see, let me check something, have a doubt. Okay, yes, we're right. Okay, yes, no, it's good. You see that here it has been changed. It has been changed by because I changed the roughness, and here set as root I have the result because they're connected. Now, once again, I can connect them one by one, but a cool thing to get, you see here I have 3 levels, 1, 2, 3, still blending well. And I'm going to see this one is more visible. Why? Because here I have a roughness, I think, which is too high. So I'm going to put 1 at the moment, so it's average. So if I go here, you see that I can plug one by one, but what you can do as well is Control Shift and you connect, and it will connect all of them together. And now we have like 3 of them which are independent one from the other. So for this one, I can say, let me go here and I want maybe not a square, maybe a paraboloid. So I have like 3 different shapes, which is great. But the thing is, many times, if you want something with a lot of micro detail, well, you are going to chain more quadrants. So here I took these 2, for example, and I'm going to Control Shift plug, and maybe let's be crazy, Control Shift, Control D again, Control Shift plug. And here you see that you start having super small patterns. But once again, now I'm going to make a pause to explain something. So why is it different? Why is it first vertical like that and not the other way? Because the way it works differs a bit from a regular graph, whether it's a function graph or a default graph. Because a default graph, what you do, you are building, you have a node 1, for example, that you are going to plug to node 2, 3, maybe they are going to node 5, 6, etc., until the output. And when you plug to the output, what the output does, it just reads what you have put as its input. That's it. It doesn't know what was going on, like in node 2, for example. It has no idea, except if you expose, but still, it won't even have ideas. So what you define is just an outcome, and that's it, without looking back. The FX map is not the same thing. What you define, it's not called an output, and there is a good reason. It's called a root, because what it does is you define a point, and from this point, the Substance Engine is going to look back at everything which is happening before. So it look at all the ramifications. So this is a recursive process where we are doing, instead of saying I'm defining the output, no, I'm defining the point from where I'm going to look at everything which is before. This is a small, this really what helps building fractal stuff which are way stronger. So that's my way to explain it. Maybe there is others, but that's really how it works. The root is the point from where the Substance Engine is going to look back and process everything which is ramified to it. So it means that all the small pattern which are here, so it won't say, okay, I'm drawing bitmap. Say, oh no, I'm going to draw all these patterns where whatever their size, defined by all these quadrants. So all the patterns here are still alive, we can say. And we'll see why it's important. So I'm going to, so this is nice. You see, I have a nice pattern, interesting, but honestly, editing this as a noise is a bit complex. Why? Because where do you start from? Okay, maybe this one, I'm going to change the angle. Okay, it does something, but I'm not sure if it's what I want. Maybe this one, let's see. No, let's take this one then. Okay, I get something, but yeah, it works. You can do some stuff, but right now it looks more like a Scottish fabric than anything else. Luckily, there is, for noise, a better way to do. So let me remove all this stuff. And maybe I will even remove that, and we'll start from a fresh one. So quadrant, that as output, as root, sorry. I'm so used to regular graph. And we are going to take like, I'm going to take like a Gaussian, like this one, for example. So once again, we can play with the color, luminosity, etc. But what I'm going to do is to chain them once again, but I'm going to chain the same one. But instead of making Control D to get a duplicate, I'm going to create a reference. And a reference means you are going to create a copy which is in fact like an instance, which means that everything you are doing on one node will also affect the other one. They are twins, but linked twins, which means that everything you do on one, you will do on the other. So whatever the one you change, it will affect everything. So let's make one, for example, create reference, Control Shift to plug them. And now I have two like that, fine. You see that now if I go here and I change the offset, well, the offset is not a great example. Let's change the size. You see that it changed at the two levels, depth level of my chain, quadrant chain. And this is extremely powerful, which means that you can play with just one and change everything. Rotation doesn't do anything visible because, yeah, if I do like this, it will be way more visible. So this is great. It means that now they can plug way more than that. So let me duplicate this, not Control D, you see. If I do this, create reference, yeah. I'm going to make a few like that. Let's align all of this. By the way, I think I can do this, select this, and I have like vertical align, so it will help a bit. We can improve the distribution of them, but at least it works well. So now I'm going to plug everything to start to build my noise. So let's do that, and now I'm going to plug from top to bottom so we see the addition of the noise. So we start to get something interesting, but that's a bit small. So what I can do first is here I change the size. So I can put it like that. I can also go back here and increase a bit in the FX map level the opacity to get something a bit. I can put it low and put auto level, and now I get something. So here I have like less than the noise. I have an interesting pattern. You see, once again, we can feel the fractal aspect of it. Within that, the repetition is here, and if I would add another level, you would see it more. Here I'm in 124 for the make sure for the stream it works well, but you can change put a higher definition to see all the small details, but still we see it. So that's nice. Once again, we say that you can change everything. And by the way, I was talking about branch offset and pattern offset. So what's the difference? So the pattern offset will move the full pattern, which means the full texture will be offset like that. Meanwhile, the branch offset will play at the relative scale of each quadrant depth. So you see that it's like it gives the effect of sliding a bit. Like small ones are moving a bit higher, faster. So that's the way it works. So if we do like this, I'm going to hold Shift. We see that, yeah, the small one give the feeling to move faster. It's more than their space here is way smaller as well. So that's the difference between branch offset and pattern offset. And another detail, please look that we are talking about offset and not position. Why? If I just cut here for a few seconds, we see that if we would talk about position, well, it's in the middle. And if you know a bit about Substance Designer, you know that the coordinates are from 0 to 1 and here, and in Y it's 0 to 1 here, which means that here we are in the middle. It would be 0.5, 0.5, which is not super handy to deal with in the FX map. So what the programming, the dev team decided is to say, okay, we are going to put it in the middle and not like here, because it would be weird by default. We are going to talk about offset, which means that we define an offset compared to the default position of it. If at some point you need to place at 0, 0, well, you will have to do some math and say, okay, offset minus 0.5, 0.5, something like that. We are going to do it a bit later when we want to organize the patterns. So let's plug it back here. So this is nice, we are happy, but once again, we could play with the shape like that, change some stuff, the rotation. Maybe we want to make like the size like 2, like that. We could do some interesting stuff, but yet we are going to be a bit limited at some point, because what we define right now is the same rules, same behavior for all of the pattern we are drawing. There may be, I won't do the math, but here we have like a lot of patterns. We have like a few thousands, and they all behave the same. And that's not what we want. Right now, what we're going to see is how to apply a different behavior for each of them. So let me put this back to 0. The first one we are going to look is to do this, well, we have to add some randomization. Sorry, I have a mosquito which tries to suck my blood. So the first one we are going to play with is the color luminosity. So it's from 0 to 1. So it's you see that it's a decimal number, so it's a float number. So we are going to expose this parameter and create not expose, sorry, to create an empty function for it. So when we do this, we have a function graph. I hope you know a bit about the function graph, but if not, it's a graph which allows you to create a logic within a parameter to control this parameter. So for this one, we say it's a float. So if I do spacebar, you see you have a bunch of nodes which are specific to function graph. I'm going to call the float node. And now if I put this, you see that nothing happened because I have to put this as output. And note that as I am in a float parameter, I can only put float as output. This is important. If I put a float 2, for example, you can't. And so we received a lot of questions about that. Someone saying, I don't understand, this is grayed out. It's because you are trying to expose a value which does not correspond to the parameter value. So now, okay, I have float 0, so 0 equal no light. So just doing that, it works, but once again, it does the same for everything. And as I told you before, what you have to remind, and we are going to write it, is what we're doing here is this rule for each drawn pattern, do this. So this is a pattern, sorry. You have to understand that right now you say for each drawn pattern, do set the luminosity at 1. So how do I do? What I'm going to do now is I want a random luminosity for each of them. So what we are going to do now, and that's why it's starting to get interesting, is to use the random node. So random node, how does it work? Well, it will return a random number comprised between 0 and the value you plug it in. So here, 0 and 1. So it does not do anything right now. Why? Because I have to set this as output node. And now, yes, it starts to get some interest, because you see that now they have different position. And if I change the maximum value, you see that I can well, it will define the maximum value. So right now you say from each drawn pattern, choose a number between 0 and 1. If I want, I can put 1.5 and I will have a bit brighter value. It will never go over 1, but it can give the aspect of giving something a bit burnt like that. So now what you have to understand, and which is cool, is that each pattern is read independently, and for each pattern it will do this. So for each pattern it will give a new random number, and that's the core of the FX map. This way you can build this kind of noise which are interesting. So that's nice. So we have controlled the luminosity in a random way. So I'm going to put us to 1.5 maybe, and I'm happy with that. And you see, of course, that it tiles, because once again it draws pattern and it's hard to repeat. Now let's continue to add some randomness. So going here and say, okay, I have the branch offset. So what would be great and what will have a huge impact in my noise is the position. I want random position for each of this pattern. So same process. Here I have X and Y, which means that X, which is a float, Y, which is a float, so which means that this is a float too. So once again, going to enter inside. This is something that I'm doing now and that we're going to change a bit later on for a good reason. So I'm creating an empty function. If I do a float 2, we are just checking that it works well. So set as output node. Okay, we control X and Y. Once again, we don't want, for each pattern, we have this position, so we want randomness. So I'm going to add some randomness, like this one, which takes the float 1, so I can drag and drop to this and type float, and it will directly show me the float because it just shows the compatible node this way. But we say we want a float 2, so what we will need is a vector float 2, and I'm going to call that 2 times and define this as output node. You see that there is no output node and there is no error, because if there is nothing to return, nothing equals 0, so it just returns 0 and it make it work. Now set as output node still does nothing because I define a value between 0 and 0, so it's 0. But if I move this, that's where it's starting to get interesting. You get this kind of result. Like now we start having a real noise. Yet, if you look properly, you will see that right now it's moving really at 45-degree angle. Why? Because, okay, we see for each pattern, generate a random number and apply it to X and Y, but right now it applies the same random number to X and Y. So I'm going to duplicate this, make a second one for X, one for Y. And now, when you change that, you will see that direction will be way more random, and that's what we want. Great. So this is great, and you can do this for all the parameters to add some randomness, and you can play a lot with that. And once again, you can select whatever, it's the same one. You see that but let's say that you want to get a bit deeper in the process, and you want to say, okay, I'd like the luminosity to affect the size of my object, meaning that the brighter is the luminosity for a pattern, the bigger it will be. So this is something that you can there is a way to do that, but it's not obvious at first. And honestly, we agree that although the workflow that I'm going to show is working and is the only one, it's not the most obvious one at first. But once you get used to it's really, really powerful. So if I want to do the first thing you have to see, if you look at the parameters, they go from top to bottom. If we think about a bit a programming way, what we will have to do is here to define some values and to reapply it to some parameters. So we'll have to get into luminosity, define some stuff that will affect, for example, the pattern rotation. And when you think about the programming way, you first have to define a variable to be able to call it later on. So it means that it's like a book. You don't start by the end of the story, because if you say, okay, Mike, if someone is talking about you about Mike, for example, and they talk about Mike 3 chapters before, if you didn't read it, you don't know who is Mike. It's the same in programmation. First, you have to define a variable, so you are able to call it later on. Which means that if I define pattern rotation, if I have the pattern rotation value here, and I define it, well, the color luminosity cannot use it because it's below in the stack. The stack is starting from top. It's looking at the color luminosity here, and everything that is going on inside. Then it will go to the branch offset, that it will pattern offset, etc. So if you define something in luminosity, yes, it will be accessible in the other parameter. But if you define something in inherit random, for example, you won't be able to access it above. So in luminosity, it's not possible. Same thing, if I want to define the size to be affected by the luminosity, well, I have to define the stuff in the luminosity, because if I define the size here, for example, I won't be able to send the information to color luminosity. It's too late, it's just one way. So the trick here is to define everything for every pattern within the first parameter, which is the color luminosity. So I will define the rules for my pattern size, but the good rule is to put everything. This way you are sure that if you want to say, okay, I want the luminosity to affect the offset and the pattern size, and maybe also the angle, whatever you want to do, you have all the specification at the same place. So we're going to do it and it will be clearer. So here, for example, I have the branch offset. So first thing I'm going to show you is I'm going to move the branch offset logic that we have just built. I'm going to move it to color luminosity. So to do this first, I'm going to copy this. I'm leaving it for now, we delete it later on. And now I'm going to the color luminosity function. And to make sure that I'm organized, I'm going to take this, make a frame, and I will say, okay, this frame is luminosity. Fine. Now we are going to say we want to define the offset, so I'm going to put it like this, do Control V, and put here a frame, and I will say, okay, this is my offset. So we know what it is, but now we have a problem. How do I do to send this value here? Oh, this one is plugged, I don't know why. Let's remove it. So how do I do? Something is missing. Okay. Okay, let's go into it. Okay, now I'm here. Okay, so I have this value here and I want to send it the result. So this, I want to send it in this parameter. So how do I do? We have to have a way first to call it here. So generally what we do is we are going to create what we call a variable, and we are going then, once this variable is set, we are going to go to the branch offset parameter here, and we are going to call the variable we have created. But how do we do that? Because, well, to create a variable, it's easy. You just have to click here, you click set, set, and the set node is made to create variable. So this one, I'm going to call it offset param, like that. And I'm going to copy it, because this is another default that we have to improve. You will see later on. So Control C to copy it. Okay, fine. So I have the offset param defined here, but I cannot set it as output. And even if I want, This I can't as well because it's a float 2, but even if it would have been a float 1, if I expose, if I put this as output, it means that the luminosity is not outputted because it can just output the result of one node. But once again, there is a solution. So once again, this is the luminosity. If you want, so we want to export to output from this graph both the this node as the luminosity parameter value and this one as an additional variables that we have just defining with this. So to do this, you use what we call a sequence node like this, which is a node that does exactly that. It will output the result for the parameter and additional content. So to make sure that it works, you plug the first one, the value which corresponds to the parameter at the bottom, and at the top, we put this one and you put this as output. You see that it just moved here. It's just because it has generated a new random number, so it has changed that, but nothing specific. So now this, we output the parameter value and this variable offset param here, which contain this value. Now we go back here. I'm going in the branch offset to remove this. So to do this, I'm just reset. So now the branch offset position is by default 0, 0. But I can go in, you create an empty function, and we are going to make a get float 2. And if you look at the list, you see that it's not in. So that's why I copied it first, because if you do control past, it works. You just have to set it as output node, and now it works. So it's a bit a trick, a workaround. At first it looks a bit awkward, but the great thing right now is that if you go here, well, you have the control on everything, like that. You see here I change the offset, and here I can change the luminosity. So once your noise is built, you have everything at a place, and it's way easier to tweak. And now what I say that I want the luminosity to affect the size of my asset. So what we're going to do now, I'm going directly I know I want to work on the size, and I know the size is a float 2. So I'm going to create a small empty frame for now, like this one. Let's call it size. And what I'm going to do is, maybe once again, we are going to do some, we're not going to do some random, because I said I want the luminosity to affect. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, I want the luminosity to affect, yet I want the size to have a bit of randomness either without that. So first thing we're going to do is just making sure using that. So to do this, I'm going just to create a vector 2, a vector plot 2 like that, because it will be the result of my size. And I'm going to use this. So let me plug like that, but I'm going to add like a point here so we can move it. And maybe move the luminosity a bit this way so it's clearer. So now what I say is, okay, I have this random value, which is between 0 and 154, is going to control my size. And the bigger, the brighter. So once again, what we have to do is to output this value. So to do that, we just create a variable with the set node. We give it a name, size param. See, and once again, here we have a sequence. So we are going to pursue the sequence and add a new sequence node. And this one will go at the bottom, and this one at the top. Once again, the one which contains the original parameter always goes at the bottom. We set this as output. I'm just making sure I have copied that. Going back to my quadrant params. The size is here, and here I'm going to empty function, get float 2, and I'm going to pass this size param and set as output node. And now you see that the bigger, the brighter, and it controls. The bigger will be the pattern, the brighter it will appear. I can also I'm going to add the rotation. And as I say, as a good habit, I could say, okay, I create it here. But once again, we don't know, maybe if you want to play, I'm going like the other ones to create everything here. What I can do here, if I want, I can directly enter in rotation, empty rotation. It will be a gate float. I can create the rotation param like that, like this. I'm going to do Control C, and I'm going to do the control set as output node. This is, I call a rotation parameter, which at the moment does not exist, but we are going to create it now. So here, here, color luminosity, and we are going to create frame rotation that. Here we are going to put a random. Here we want a random between 0 and 1. You have to know that the value for rotation by default it's a turn by default, which means the 360 angles correspond to 0, 1 value. We made it once again to make the math a bit easier. So here we need a float. So the maximum, we want a value between 0 and 1. We will set a value, the variable. We have the name here, rotation param. And once again, sequencer node. And we continue the chain. And here we go. Now we have different rotation for each of them. And if you want, you can say, for example, okay, I like, but the size is not enough for me. I want something bigger. So I'm happy that it's affected by the luminosity, but yet I want to get bigger. Well, you just have to add some more math. So here, for example, you can say, okay, in the size, okay, I have this. I'm using this to define the size, yet I want to add another parameter here, which will multiply the value, so it's bigger or smaller. So multiplication here. You need a float. By the way, I'm not going to do it here because I'm going to do it before to plug it here. So here we're going to put 1. Like this, and here what I'm doing is shift on the right to plug everything here. And now if I play with this, I can define the maximum, the size that I want. So just with this, you have created a pattern, a noisemaker. You can go back, you can say, for example, I want to get back to my quadrant and maybe choose another pattern, like maybe this one for me, the tone is not bad, it gives me something better. And of course, you can expose some parameters. For example, if I want to play with the position, or the size, maybe you can say size multiplier. Well, you can go here, take this, and instead of controlling with the float, which is great, but it's static, it cannot be exposed, we can create a gate float that we put it for now, and we have to create a parameter for it. So I'm going to go at the substance graph level, double clicking here, and now I have the parameters of the graph, and here I can create a parameter. So it will be a float in my case, so I don't have to change the type. I will say, let's call it size, star size, whatever you want. This will be the internal name for designer, and here you can say for the user, the final user, particle size. Particles size. So this is the display name, so that you will see in preview. Meanwhile, this one is the one you will see in the getFloat variable. So if I go back here, so I have it 0, 1. Maybe I want to put between 0 to 2, but the default value is 1. So now you see it doesn't do anything. Why? Because it's not plugged yet. If I go back here and I plug that here, so first here there is no value right now, so the return value is 0. But now if I plug my star size, it works. And what I can do here, what the final user can do here, is to play with the size and adapt it to the need he wants. So that's, So that's the way you would create some noise parameters. Of course, you can play with way more. For example, let me go back to the screen. I can say, you know what, I want to be even more crazy, meaning that I can, in my FX map, to go in and say, I want to take an input instead of the default shape. You can put an input and it works well generally. I can say, let's put something like, okay, I think here, I want the input image. So by default, there is not yet. So, but if I take a branch map, let's take like branch map 2, hope it works. I'm just going to blend it before to make sure to make like an alpha around it. So let's take blend node. By the way, I can do B, I think. Yes, directly I define some shortcut. If I take this and put like a shape like this one and put, so I see I have a question in the chat. I'm going to look at that in a second. I can do this, for example, which is nice. And if I plug that now, I look, you see that this is your noise which is repeated. So that's a way to add some variation really quickly in an efficient way. Ala is asking, hi Vincent, does it matter the parameter sequence in function and in quadrant node? In function and in quadrant node, does it matter? Depends what you mean. No, you can define. I'm going to go back here 2 seconds. So what matters? I can for example put this one this one at the top and this one here, no problem. I can, for example, if I do here, I do X, it still works. Here, it just generates a new random, so it changes the view, but it still works. So the sequence node from the additional parameter, not that important. What is important is that the parameter which is dedicated to the current parameter, which means luminosity, remains at the bottom. And everywhere where this one is changed, for example, if I go here, I select upstream, I think I can do that. I cannot do that here. Ah, yes, select upstream node. Well, it selects everything. It's not a good example. Maybe if I do select downstream node, yeah, you see that here. Well, I'm going to remove that for a second. It will not work. So. But because I make a specific stuff, but if I do downstream, you see, anyway, it works because there's that. Okay, now it selects also this pattern, which I don't want to see, but you see that here, what is important is just that the current parameter value is plugged at the bottom and that the next one are always plugged at the bottom. If I plug that at the top, you will have some issues, for example. Hope it helps. And then after, what is important is just to make sure you define the variable in a clear way and that you replug to whatever parameter you need. So here I just make getFloat2 to replug the parameters. Okay, so this was the first part of the FX map. As I say, it's super easy to make noise. Well, super easy. It's super powerful to make noise with it. I really invite you to play, to really start simple. You make a chain of 2 or 3. Just play with few parameters. Just try to make some randomness. Once again, the random node is key there. And then try to add some influences between each of them. Now, what we're going to do is, well, random is great. And now let's see if we can make something more organized. Meaning like the tile sampler, for example, where we see that we can align, but if you are good in math, you can also find some functions to follow line, to follow cosinus value, cosine value, for example, stuff like this. Now, what we're going to do is just align stuff and see the how it works, and also understand a bit the iterate node. So let's go back to my screen, like that. I'm going first, okay, it's going to be sad, but I'm going to delete all of this. And now I have just my random pattern. But as I have some randomness, etc., I'm going to delete everything and just put a new quadrant. On this quadrant, sorry, it's the mosquito time in Barcelona. I'm going to add a paraboloid like that. Put this as a root. So I have my shape. Going to go back here a few seconds in my, so this I don't need. Here I'm making sure that this is to 1, my opacity. Once again, I see this more as an exposure. This is maybe some stuff we'll discuss with the team to rename, to revise the naming, I'm not sure. And I'm going to make it a bit smaller. Something like 0.1, 0.1. Okay, so I have a point. Going to plug this here and put this here. So I have my point, so gives a good idea. So let's see how iterates work. We see it rapidly, but we see that it iterates, setting this as root. So for like that. So I have a point, and if I put this, I have more points. But the thing is, okay, they're all at the same place. But what is great, if I define some randomness here, it will be applied also in the iterate node. Why? Because as I told you, the concept here, oh, sorry, just killed a mosquito. The concept here is that from this point, the Substance Engine is going to look at everything that is connected and the properties of each pattern, meaning also the randomness. So if it has to draw 5 patterns, 6, 7, 10, it will draw them, taking in account the randomness which is defined here. So what it means is here I'm going to define, for example, randomness for the position. So I take the quadrant, have position. This time, as I'm good, just for the sake of the example, I'm really doing it in the position in the offset parameter here. Empty function, it's a float 2. So I'm going to make a vector float 2, which will be my output. I'm going to create a random node. I'm going to create a float node that I will define to 1. I'm going to duplicate my random. So I have for 2 different random for X and Y, and I plug this here and here. So now I have like a random position for 1 point, because at the moment I just have one pattern. Yet if I go back here and I plug, so I'm going to put to 1 at the moment for the suspense, I plug that here. I still have 1 because I said, okay, you draw 1, but no. Oh, sorry, I have to define this as root. So it defines a new value, so it's here. But now if I increase the iteration, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you see that it respects 100. It's still, it's random because from this point it has read at all the properties for each pattern it will draw. And here for each pattern, it has its own unique random number. Great, so let's see that a bit later. So I'm going back to my quadrant, and for now I'm going to remove the randomness because we say we want something organized. So how could we do that? So let's go back here. I'm going to unplug everything to remove the random because I don't want random. So how can I do? Because right now with the random, we were able for each pattern to define a different random number. But how do we do when they are all the same? Well, they have something that is different for each of them by default, is that they do have an assigned ID number. And to access this ID number, it's you have to use a get float. And from these get floats, you have like hard-coded values. So some of them are time for animation, depth is for the depth of the level when you draw when you have multiple quadrants. Depth power 2 as well. If I'm not wrong, yeah, I think it's that. And you have dollar number. So dollar number is a number, I think, starting from 0, which is defined for each of the numbers. So when you do this, you say for each pattern, first read the ID number of the pattern. So it would be ID 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the cool thing is with this value, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is that we can do some math with it. We can say, okay, move the position from this. And the second one, you can multiply by the ID number each time. So position multiplied by 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's exactly what we're going to do. So right now, as we say, it's a float. And if I use the float by default, yeah, let me check, I have, let's do 10 patterns to see clear. Once again, here there is 10 patterns, they are one on top of the other. And I'm going to tile like this so we see what's going on, because it will make sense well later on. So I'm go here, I have this number, and I can say, okay, let's use this number and plug it here. Maybe here I'm just going to put a float. So it means in Y at the moment, I have a number, I can define the height, Y's position vertically. Let's keep it in the center at the moment. And now what is weird is, okay, I put the number and nothing is changing. Why? Because it should be a different number, so the X value should be different. Well, it is different, but the thing is, we say that the width here is 0, 1. So if the number is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, what it does is it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. But as it is tiling, well, it's going back to its original position. So we have to add like something to change the strength, and you do this with the multiplication. So if I do multiply this, and I will say I need a float once again, by default it's 0. So if I plug it, once again, it doesn't do visually anything. Why? Because you multiply by 0. So it means that it's never offset. The offset never moves. But right now, if I take this and I move it, you see that you can change the value and adapt it here. Here, as we have 10 and 0, it's a 0, 1 value, I will divide by 10. So it's like multiplied by 0.1, and it will be perfectly aligned. So I have my 10 points aligned here. So that's how you would add some control on each pattern, by using this dollar number, which is what is unique to each pattern. So using that, making some math starting from this dollar number will really help. Now, we're going to organize this a bit. That's where a bit of mathematical logic can be useful. But what I'd like to do first is to put it, you see that it started from the center going here. I explained this at first. It's because the first one, what we're controlling here is the offset, not the position. The position is 0.5, 0.5. So if we want to put it to starting here, we have to make an offset to 0.5, 0.5. We will see that we will still have to adjust. But to do that, well, we have the position and we are going to make a subtraction. So I do sub. This is a float 2 here. Sorry. So I'm going to create another float 2. Float 2, like that. Oops, sorry, it's a float. And I'm going to plug it this way. So by default 0, 0, it doesn't do anything, but I'm going to subtract 0.5 vertically first, but not only. If I do vertically, oh, sorry, no, vertically is y 0.5, like that. I have to plug this as output. Okay, we see that seems to work. Not exactly what we want but seems to work. But if I diminish the iteration, we see that yes, it works, but it does not start. It does not start from the beginning. I really would like to start from the beginning, so I have to do it also in white. So let me change that and make an offset here 0.5. Okay, so we made an offset of 0.5. To help me a bit, what I'm going to do is to go a few seconds to iterate, and I'm just going to put 1. So we see that, okay, it works, but right now what I really would like is to put it here. So as the size is 0.1, it means that half the size is 0.05. So I still have to adapt a bit the offset. That's easy. Just to make sure I'm not wrong, I'm going to go to here to take this one. And as we made a minus, we may add a bit more. So in X, I think we have to add, well, we say I won't remove 0.5, I will remove 0.45. Let me check. Yeah, you see? 5. And here, same thing, I won't remove that much, I will remove the 0.45. Okay, so now it's at the beginning. And now, if I'm going here, it works. Well, it works on one line, but the thing is, if I put 11, you see that it goes on top of each other, which is not what I want. What I would like is that if you want to make like digital style, but what I would like to do is to make sure that each time we have drawn 10, well, the elements, it goes at the line. There is an offset. So there is different ways to do that, but the easiest way, the most common way is to use what we call a modulo. Modulo, sorry, you will have to see with the math, it's the rest of a division, which means that when you divide by a number, it will keep something. For example, 7 divided by 3, where the modulo will be equal 2, for example, and the modulo will be 1. It will leave 1. And one of the good things with that is that it's something which is additive. If you put modulo 10, for example, it will go up to 10. It will be it will decrease. How to explain that? It will increment and go back to the beginning. So it will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, 10, and it will go back to the beginning, etc. And it will go back. So it allows you, when you have series like this, to increment in a logical way. So I'm going to do it now and you will understand. So modulo is, you just have to type this. And what we want here is, I'm going to make some space and I'm going to add a bit more iteration. I'm going to add like something like 20. So right now they are on top of each other, but the good thing is to make sure, hey Ben, nice to, you won't teach, I won't teach you anything. Ben Wilson is an awesome, super great substance 3D artist who is way more talented than me. So I think he's just coming to teach me some stuff. But still, I'm really happy that you are here. And once again, go to ArtStation, look for Ben Wilson, one of the best world substance artists. So let's go back here and let's play with my branch offset here. And we are going to do a modulo. But first of all, I have this number. So this number is going to go from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. But I have first to divide it by 10. So actually I have it divided by 10 here. Just let me share. I'm just thinking out loud. Yeah, so I should take this. And I will create a float here. So what it will do is, until it's below 10, the return value will be first be 1, then it will be 2, then it will be 3. So let me check like that, and let's plug that here and see what is going to happen. Okay, so that's where I have my mistake. So right now what it does, it returns. So I may have to divide again by 10. No, it's I know. Okay, it was right. Okay, but this is the result here that I have to divide by because right now it does for each of them. I struggled a bit yesterday and I found the answer just after. So Ben, do you know about that? I have a question already. Please explain me how the roughness parameter work on the root fx map node. It's not set to 0, seems to modify the value on the sample inside. Yes, so the roughness value, sorry, as I explained, it's a way, I don't have the example here. It's a way to define, I'm going to do and explain you just after because I have to build the example first. So first I'm going to do this, but stay tuned there. You will have your answer. So let's go back here. So here I have my number, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. And then from this, okay, I have my line here, modulo 10. So, and now I have to divide somewhere. So either before or after. Oh, no, I have to multiply by 10. Let me check. Let's use that. No. No. So it means that I have somewhere to. Okay, we are better here. So it's not exactly what I want, but at least they are lines. So let me check where I made the mistake. So it gives something interesting, but it's not what I want. And I really exactly had the same mistake yesterday. It's because I may have to add this. No, I have to add it here. So, but yes, the idea is really, I won't spend too much time on it because just playing with this after it works, but cool thing with that, if I put like that and I go to my fx map and put like 200, for example, you can play and get some interesting result directly from here, even if it's not the expected result for now. But I don't want to browse too much with what we are doing. To give a last score, branch offset. So here we have the number divided by 0.1. So we don't want to get this number. So and here we have to divide. Well, you get the idea. This is a way to organize. And here, using the modulo, there is something that I don't do correctly, but still, you can do this way. So to get back to Ben's question, who were asking about the roughness, when it's set to 0, it seems to modify the value of the sample inside. So let me build something like, let's remove that, a quadrant, sorry, like that. Let's do a pattern like paraboloid, set as output, as root, sorry, reference. Okay, so let's plug all this like that. So I have this. So what does it do? The roughness, you are right, when you go here, what it does, it's the name roughness, as I said at the beginning, is not well chosen in my opinion, because it's more a way to define, like we can say, depth priority, visibility priority, which means when I'm calling depth, I'm referring to this, like it's 1 level of depth, 2 level of depth, 3, 4, 5. So the deeper we go, the deeper we are. Captain Obvious stuff. But this, if you refer to this, it means that when you move the roughness, it will go to the first level, then to the second one, and for other one, up to 1, which is quite average, but you can go further. If I put 3, I would get into the higher level of my quadrants. Now, you are right that when you go to 0, it puts everything at the maximum value. So this is a trick, a value which has been defined, which means that there is no blending. Everything is at the top. So this is a choice which has been made. In some cases, it can make sense if you're, for example, if I go here and it's really small, but that's what it does. It blends everything maximum value. So I would say if you want to expose this parameter, most of the case you will say between 0. You will remap, so it starts at 0.01, for example. So you don't have this. It can be useful, yeah, if you have like extremely small stuff like this. You see that they all keep their maximum value when you do that. So that's what you have this roughness. Meanwhile, if I go back to here, if I put that, it will here it will play between the levels. So it's just a way to stop the depth priority between quadrants, to put them all at the top. And once again, as I explained, if you go here, you can play with the roughness. Sorry, not the roughness, the global opacity, and you don't hesitate to adjust to auto level, which will make sure that the values, it will remap all the value to make sure it starts from black and it goes to white. And then you can move it up, sorry, here, and expose a bit more. And once again, opacity is not the right name in my opinion. Maybe brightness, general brightness, or exposure, something like that would have made more sense. At least it would have been more understandable. Okay, so I think we are good. This one is color, I don't know why. Okay. Okay, we are here. So once again, I'm pretty sure I will rediscover how to align this properly with the modulo after the live stream. Generally, what you have to do is use a modulo 10, but I have forgotten a division per 10 in a part of my presentation. Anyway, you got the idea, and I really inviting you to play. Maybe I will do a small video just to explain how to make this alignment stuff. But you get the idea. Just by doing this using the dollar number value, you can create really, really interesting pattern, an organized pattern. Once again, you can follow some also. If you are a fan of math, don't hesitate to go online and look, for example, what is the function for creating a sine wave, for example, and from this you can take some inspiration to create and place your pattern. Ala has a question. I think I have created a spiral of pattern with fxmap, but made a problem. Pattern are distributed non-uniformly. Oh, a cat is coming. Non-uniformly, like beads, but can. Sorry, non-dense at spiral start. Sorry, cats are just fighting. Just give me a second. So the cat on the back here is really nice, but the other one loves to ruin his life. So sorry about that. That's the fun of the direct. So meta problem. Patterns are distributed non-uniformly, dense at spiral, start and spaced at the end. Okay, this is quite depends of your algorithm. Maybe it means that, for example, you would have to use the same formula, but at the end you may have to say, okay, to add like how to say that, like to use the ID number once again to make sure that you are going to multiply by this in a way, by this number, to diminish the distance at the end. I would use this way. Have to see, I made like a few time ago a Fermat spiral, and I have the same issue. It's kind of normal because it's calculating the position, yet if it's bigger, it's still calculating the position, but multiply by another number. So you may have some density. Or what you can do also is to make them bigger at the end. So it will compensate a bit the fact that it's they are farther. I created but met a problem. I need uniform pattern distribution like beds, but can't cope with this tag. Maybe you met with such a task and give me a tip. Yeah, so I would do this way. I would use the ID number to play with the size to see if there is a way to change the distance. Also, taking the size in account can be a way. So I don't know if the size is supposed to change, but playing with this could help. Yeah, if you are just at one level, I think you just use one quadrant. You don't need to use more in your case. If you use more, you can also take there is a depth that you can take in account. So that could be a way as well. So yeah, just like this, it's a bit hard. Feel free to send me the graph at some point. You can CGVinny at adobe.com. You can have a look, or we can discuss also on Discord. I'm on Discord and on many places. Mastodon, I don't know if there are people. I know it's small right now, but it would be great that if there were more people in Mastodon. Anyway, I don't see any other question, just making sure I don't forget anything. I don't think so. So thanks for watching. To give you a bit a glimpse of the future, in 2 weeks there is no live stream because I will be at Adobe Max in Los Angeles, which is like the big Adobe conference we do for creative every year. So this will be super cool. If you go there, just pass by, or if you are in Los Angeles, just tell me. That will be great. And as a teaser, that what I will present in like 2 weeks, but 4 weeks in theory. We are going to talk about Photoshop, which is a bit weird. You say, why Photoshop? I mean, substance. Well, because if you have the Photoshop beta in the 25.1 release of the beta, we have released what we call parametric filters. And parametric filters are filters which are based on the Substance 3D engine, which means that you can build parametric filters within Designer for Photoshop, which is great because you can go crazy with that. I made some which are really cool. I'm just working on the kaleidoscope right now, but anything you can do in Designer, well, you can reuse it in Photoshop, which is great. Right now, I know the first communication for creative producer would be just about how to use them, which is really similar to a regular filter. But on my side, what I will do is how to build them, because right now, if you want to build a filter for Photoshop, it's kind of tricky. You have to know JavaScript or to know how to code a bit. And look, it's hard. Life is hard. I have a cat which is sleeping right now. So thanks again for watching. See you in 3-4 weeks, even if I will do some small video meanwhile. But if you have some ideas for live streams, if you want some themes, don't hesitate to tell me. I'm going to try to do more. What I want to do also is there will be one which will be about creating parameters, filters, for sampler. So yeah, the cat is a gem. And see you soon. Thanks again for watching. Bye bye.